What is up, fellow sickos? I am Dan Valley coming at you with the one, the only, the certified fantabulous Mr. Grant Hughes. We are here to talk about the Knicks head coaching search. We will do a separate podcast about their offseason look ahead. We wanted to separate the two just because the coaching thing feels like it could become more dated at any point, or hell, at this rate, maybe the Knicks go through the offseason without hiring a head coach and figure it out at the last minute. Grant, before we kind of dive in here, how the heck are you doing?
I'm gleefully anticipating just discussing the Knicks and the offseason with you. So I'm just ecstatic to be here.
Let's dive in. So we're going to start here, and I'm going to go on a little bit of a long-winded spiel for a second. Should the Knicks have had more of a concrete replacement for Tom Thibodeau in mind when they fired him? Was a stance that I assumed because of the reporting that's come out about, and anyone who's listened or watched this podcast in the past knows that I am not someone who considers themselves a Thibs guy, but I haven't necessarily understood the process, but I wasn't really thinking about it because I'm looking at the names that are popping up. And as Grant and I sit here and record this, the Knicks have inquired about the availability of Billy Donovan, Chris Finch, Jason Kidd, Quinn Snyder, Ime Udoka, Ken Coach Carter, Samuel L. Jackson, and Red Arbeck. They've been rejected for all of those guys. I want to make a couple of things clear before I'm about to eat my own words, and I did on Blue Sky and Twitter the other night. This is objectively hysterical, and if Knicks fans can't laugh at the jokes that are being made at the Knicks' expense for this, I don't know what to. It's hysterical that this is being leaked, whether it's from the Knicks, from the teams that are hearing from the Knicks. It's just really funny. Now, however, I had to take that this was turning into a farce. And the reporting on it kind of is turning into a farce. We don't need to necessarily hear all these updates, but we are because it's the Knicks. And so I had said this is a farce. How do you get rid of Thibs? Because you're either A, deluded enough to think that you're going to hire any of these coaches who are already employed, or you just think that anyone's an upgrade over Tom Thibodeau, which is sort of a danger zone. And like the latter could still just be true. But people were mad at me on social media, and as someone who, it's hard to admit when you're wrong. Like, I have an ego just like anybody else. I admitted I was wrong and said, this does just fall under due diligence. I don't think, if I had to guess, and this is an educated guess, Grant, teams are not this aggressive when it comes to reaching out, typically, to teams like already employed head coaches. And I guess at this rate, like, you might as well ask about Mark Daigneault, especially if the Thunder lose in the finals, right? So I wanted your impressions just on that before we dig a little deeper, but I wanted to say that this is, what did we make fun of the Kings for? What did we make fun of even the, like,
what we make fun of the Kings
right,
for?
But the Kings went and it seems like they didn't stage a very thorough search before just settling on Doug Christie. And I think when he's in, and the same with Denver, like when you have an interim head coach and you think you have a feel for them, I think that's fine. But I saw Sam Quinn posted this, and this was kind of it wasn't a gotcha, Dan, but it wasn't at me to begin with. But he posted on Twitter saying, what would we have thought if a week after firing Tom Thibodeau, the Knicks had interviewed like 10 different assistant head coaches and not picked one? We would not have thought anything of it, I don't believe. And so it's objectively okay that the Knicks didn't have, like, to me, you should have like a name or two circled in the bag, and you better be like sure that you can find an upgrade over Coach X for whatever reason. And I do still have some concerns, which we will get into, but I just kind of wanted your thoughts on just the list of these names sort of trickling out.
It's unlike anything I can remember, and it feels partly like a flex because the Knicks, I think, the source of the leaks is a whole other thing, but like it does seem to broadcast that the Knicks think we're such a good place to be and such a high profile organization and so high functioning and have a good roster that we can sort of like, have you ever seen, I don't know where it came from, but like, do you ever see when someone flew a plane with like one of those messages streaming behind it that said like Reggie Miller, stop pursuing married women or something like that?
No.
This is a thing. This is a thing that happened. And it's like, New York Knicks, stop pursuing employed coaches. Like, leave us alone. Like, we have a covenant here. We signed contracts. Like, these people are part of it feels like a flex that they're like, well, we're just asking, you know, like, hey, you want to come over here? Want to see what it's like in a big market? Good roster. We got Jalen Brunson
with a front office that never speaks, and you'll have to answer for them.
You'll be in front of the firing line every time with no backup. So I guess if you want to credit them for anything, it's like, that's ambitious. You guys really, you got to believe in yourself, and they seem to. This will shock no one. I kind of initially came down on it the same way you did, which is like, oh, so you had no plan. Like there was a 2-step process. Step 1 was fire Tom Thibodeau, and step 2 was figure out the rest later, which is what this feels like. So and it's long shots. Like I guess the Knicks, it's a good job, but it comes with a ton of pressure, and like what you know is that you need to do better than make the conference finals to top what just happened. Like that's not easy, and there's going to be so much scrutiny. So it does feel like they didn't do their due diligence, and now I don't think it's unfair at all to say that this is kind of ridiculous, that they didn't have anybody clearly in mind, or if they did, they're like, you hang out here, we're going to go see if we can get someone better, and we'll circle back to you, like Johnny Bryant or whoever it is.
Right, and that's the two conspiracy theories, which one is just too weird, where it's, oh, they're trying to do this so they don't get like docked for tampering with somebody else. Sure. My favorite one, Howard Beck of The Ringer alluded to it, is that because James Dolan was involved in the firing of Tom Thibodeau, that Leon Rose and crew have kind of something like, yeah, we can ask these big names, but they're doing it to kind of just troll James Dolan to make him like, no, buddy, like you messed up here if you insert yourself into this. Because you knew that he was going to be the one, like the jokes would also be made at his expense. And I think, look, I think it's fair to say, yeah, you should have had, maybe not in the bag, but you should have had an idea of what, like if you're getting rid of Tom Thibodeau, you're very clearly saying one of two things. We have someone or like an archetype of coach in mind that will do better, or we just think that almost anyone can do better.
Right.
And I, as someone who is not, again, did not consider themselves a Thibs guy, I would push back against the former. I guess what I'm saying here is, and again, I was not saying it before, so this is hypocritical, I'm just admitting I was wrong. We do need to give them a chance to actually go through the process before we say that it was the wrong process. And I wasn't giving them that chance, and I do think this front office hasn't had all hits, but like they've earned the benefit of the doubt because even when they've acted incorrectly, let's say the Mikal Bridges trade, they have acted deliberately and usually not impulsively. Like, yeah, okay, that Mikal Bridges price tag seems impulsive. How long did the Knicks wait before making the consolidation trade? Now, the whole Giannis stuff going on, that's the reason why you continue to wait. But I think the front offices deserve the benefit of the doubt. Now, the things where the concerns are kicking in for me, the names that have been like loosely mentioned as we're recording this, Mike Brown, Taylor Jenkins, Mike Woodson. The East is big, Grant. Did you know that? It's still big. Might even be bigger than it was before. I don't look at any of these names and think that, oh, like this would clearly be an upgrade over Tom Thibodeau. Michael Malone's been mentioned a little bit too, but like that's, to me, that's like Thibs 2.0 when you look at his reliance on the starters. Look at Mike Brown's reliance on his starters before he got canned from Sacramento this season. What were some of like the biggest qualms about Memphis was kind of the way that their offense was run at points. And is that going to get better by putting Taylor Jenkins there? Mike Woodson, there were complaints about the way he was running the offense in 2012 or whatever it was. I don't know. Is that going to change now? Maybe one of these guys could come in and they would be an upgrade. But I've yet to hear a name that would infer invention or innovation on the Knicks' part. And I'm not saying it needs to be a first-time head coach because I don't really know, like, who's the retread that you would look at and say, no, that makes a ton of sense, right? Like, is it Jeff Van Gundy, like, trying to put, like, rope him back in? That's the one? Like, that's
my
the
guy.
One?
That's I just doing just knee-jerk reaction. I was like, I kind of hope it's him. Like, I don't. So it's interesting that you mentioned like, well, maybe they need innovation, they need all sorts of stuff. It's like, yeah, okay, let's let young coach Sean Sweeney, Chris Quinn, whatever. Like, you might get that, right? You might get, let's get some fresh ideas that, and maybe that is really what all that needs to change. I don't. It's really hard to find a precedent for a team that advanced as far as the Knicks did and are in as much of a win now mode, and like it's single digit wins from a championship, right? Like that's a tiny fraction of the league that reaches that point. That's where the Knicks were. Like they didn't have that much farther to go to be in the finals and then have a shot to win a title. So like that feels like you need a veteran coach that like has all that maybe isn't the most innovative, but understands how to manage those types of expectations, that just like has been there, has been battle tested. Like, but that's kind of hack and cliche. And like, how much does that really matter? I don't know. It's like so that's all to say. It's really hard to find someone, and we've gone through this now, that just feels like that guy's ticking enough of the boxes to be like, yep, upgrade. That is an upgrade on Tom Thibodeau. I think the best you can do is hopefully as good, but different. Like that's really, and that's kind of been true all along. There was never, Eric Spoelstra wasn't available. Have they asked about him yet? Have they been rebuffed on Eric Spoelstra?
That's the one where I'm like, didn't he just sign like a 7-year, $100+ million? Like that's
why
not
would
the
you
one.
Ever leave Miami? Yeah. No, Van Gundy, like I kind of am serious though, because like he's won wherever he's been, and he's been he was out of the head coaching chair forever. So it's not like maybe that is a benefit to him because he didn't go coach the Hawks in the mid 20 teens to, a 500 record and like a playoff first round out or whatever. Like and then what he did he's credited pretty roundly with the Clippers defense this year. Not that that's the issue for the Knicks, but like Van Gundy ticks a lot of boxes for me, and he would be one of the most interesting hires, I think, because like weirdly he feels like an unknown because he's been out for so long, but he has the Knicks ties. He has like, I guess, the reputation as maybe not being an innovator, but at like figuring out how to make stuff work. Like what he did with the Clippers defense, that if that really was him, it's always a collective effort, but like that's persuasive to me. And like, now, he's also like him and Thibodeau are very much from the same coaching tree. And like, I don't think Van Gundy's ever been credited as an offensive innovator. And if that's your core issue, then maybe that's like a non-starter. But nobody else is leaping off the page as like, it's got to be this guy. I just don't know who that is.
And I think the only way I guess there's a couple ways it would happen, but what's making it so difficult is, yes, you can be unhappy with how the season ended, even how they got to the Eastern Conference Finals, but they just got to the Eastern Conference Finals. And so this isn't just if it's a team where, I guess, even in Phoenix's case, to where it's just like, and Detroit, Denver and Sacramento kind of had a chance they had a feeling out process with these other interim head coaches. But with Phoenix, it was they have to journey off the beaten path. Now, does Michigan State count as off the beaten path? Who's to say? But
I'm to say, Dan, that the Suns' hiring criteria is, did you go to Michigan State? And that's some bullshit, and I think it's really stupid. Maybe Jordan Knott's going to be a great coach, but it's ridiculous.
But so, like, in this situation, it almost feels like that unless you were going to poach one of the head coaches that we mentioned, it needs to be a first-timer because that just implies innovation. And what that's saying to basketball minds like us or like fans is this is unknown, it's mysterious, so it can be better. And it's so hard to look at the known commodities available and say, like, that's going to be way better. And I think it's jumbled even more by the fact that, and I think this brings me into like where the actual concerns kick in. Like if the Knicks are doing their due diligence and the jokes are fine, they're encouraged, quite frankly, in my book. It looks ridiculous, but they haven't really done anything wrong. Like I agree. Again, I had the opinion that they should have really had like someone specifically in mind. But that's not necessarily how these things work, because we troll, like I said, franchises for not having an extensive search. What I think I'm concerned about is the reports that James Dolan was so heavily involved in this, because the big kazoo himself is like one of the worst human beings on the planet, let alone a terrible owner. And the Knicks have consistently been at their best when he stays out of the way. And so if you're saying you put trust in Leon Rose as a Knicks fan, yeah, I totally get that. As a Knicks fan myself, I, for the most part, trust him. But that's not where maybe I'm just so scarred from when I grew up. James Dolan was actively ruining the Knicks, getting involved in mellow trade negotiations, like running, like coaches hated him. So, and he sucks. Like he's just a really bad, he's always been willing to pay, but it's like, look at the hires he's made, like Isaiah Thomas, that whole spiel. The Phil Jackson debacle was an absolute disaster. The fact that he's more involved, and even the reporting that says there was players that said they weren't sure if they could play for Thibs again. I'm saying this is not a Thibs guy. There's only one player who should have that type of sway. It is Jalen Brunson. And we know for damn sure it wasn't Jalen Brunson who said that. And if it was, whether it was OG Anunoby, whether it was Karl Anthony Towns, whether it was Mikal Bridges, I don't give a fuck. Those are not guys who are good enough. Or I mean, OG was kind of close, but the fact that he is so valuable to them is a little concerning. They're under contract. With the exception of Mikal Bridges, there's a year left. Like, okay, so what? Like, you're a player. Go play for the coach that we installed. Play better. How about you hit that button, Mr. If it was Towns or Bridges? Be more consistent. So I don't like that. And then just what I am worried about when you're inquiring about these coaches, like, yeah, I get, like, if you were to go ask for the Clippers to get Ty Lue here, like, that would be a great hire for the Knicks. But you're going to compensate these teams more than financially. So, as a team that doesn't have a first round pick to trade, a real first round pick, what are you giving them? So you're trading assets that you need in trades to like improve a team that's not deep enough as it currently stands. Those are just, I'm open to like, we have to let this process play out, but I do think that you need to be somewhere in the middle. I don't think anything the Knicks have done raises a huge red flag, but there are legitimate questions to be answered by, all right, well, what is the plan here? Or what are you actually looking for? Like, for players to like him? Like, Jalen Brunson loved him and was your most important player. Like, that doesn't matter. And then what type of, from a like a functional principle, ideological perspective, what are you looking for? And finally, just as I mentioned, you're going after coaches that you would have to give up something for. They're not trades, but it's compensation to let them out of their contract. You're not asset laden enough to just say, if they were giving up first round swaps or some shit for a head coach, that's terrifying.
Yeah, no, I agree. I keep wanting to, and maybe you and I have talked about this. I just like, clearly the thinking was in removing Thibs that the reason this team isn't better than it is the way it's being coached, as opposed to the limitations of the personnel that is being coached. Like, it's the coach, it's not the players. The reason that the way we get better is someone figures out how to use the players we have more effectively. And I don't know that, have we talked about this? Like, do you think that's actually true? I'm just asking, because like I think there's room for debate on that. Like,
oh yeah,
I think like, and now, so that's a maybe not, but like, I think like, again, just getting back to like the options that are out there for who could replace Thibs, I don't see anybody better. I think you get someone different, and if you pick somebody young, maybe you have this long shot upside. And so like, maybe it makes sense through that lens, where it's like, we think that we've gotten as much as we possibly can about this coach player combination. And although like maybe it's in fact likely that the next coach will be worse, just the possibility that it could be better is like the risk that makes the risk worth taking. Which is like, I guess logically you could get there, but I still think what that depends on is a belief that the players can be more than they are, that someone can get more out of them, and that it's not, no, this is as good as this roster can be. I don't know if I'm convinced of that.
I think it's debatable, and I think offensively you probably could, just because Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns were basically leading separate lives by the end of
right.
by the end of the postseason.
There's a divider line down the middle of their room, and they can't go on the other side.
But I come back to the Pacers, to where and they do play him with Obi Toppin, but like, if you gave Tyrese Halliburton Karl-Anthony Towns as your primary big, I don't know that you've built like the Jalen Brunson Karl-Anthony Towns dynamic on defense. Yeah, there's room for improvement, and it can improve on offense. How do you get much better defensively with that setup? And if the answer is, well, Karl-Anthony Towns is a 4, well, then you shouldn't have traded for Karl-Anthony Towns, just because he makes too much money to say that guy's not our center. Like, like, if that makes any sense. Yeah. And look, you mentioned it with the firing Thibs, which is also interesting. I'm not saying that waiting and sitting on it for like a couple weeks would have made this process better, but I found it curious that they reacted so swiftly when it came to firing him in the first place, because that's what's also led me to believe, like, oh, they must have someone in mind if they're acting. And there might be value in just like swing the sword, like let's get this over with and start it. But I just found it very interesting that the decision was made so quickly.
I don't know. I was just gonna say, like, the fact that that the firing happened so quickly and the hiring process has dragged on, just like, seems to telegraph that this was like an emotional, like, frustration based decision. That, again, to circle all the way back, it's like, oh, maybe there wasn't like a real plan after, like, well, it can't be him anymore. Like, okay, so then who? And they're like, oh, whatever. We'll ask everybody. How about?
I think the moral here is that there's clearly more layers to the hire than, oh, okay, they're asking all these head coaches, they didn't have a plan, they suck. And something in, like, no, there's real risk here. Like, we can't guarantee they made the right decision or are going to make the right decision. I think that's the nuanced portion of it, and I'm sure people want it to be more binary. You want to think the Knicks are that they suck and that this is a bad decision that they made, or you're just so done with Tom Thibodeau that anything they do change for the change's sake. And finally, the thing is, changing the head coach here was the easiest thing to do because you don't have money to spend in free agency, and trading one of these. Who actually has the most standalone value aside from Jalen Brunson in a trade? It's probably OG Anunoby, and that contract's a little weird.
Yeah, right. No, that is true. Like, that was the lever to pull. It just feels like, I don't know, you got to know what you're going to do after you pull the lever. The true winner is Jason Kidd, because the best reporting I saw, I think it was Sam Amick. I'm sorry, I can't remember specifically, but it was like, he really just kind of wanted to use the Knicks as leverage for a bigger contract extension from the Mavs. And, like, I think a lot of other coaches out there are like, awesome, the Knicks have a vacancy, come ask me.
And knowing what we know about Jason Kidd, and it was Sam Amick who reported that, and it was Christian Clark as well, that's 100% true. Because he basically tried to stage a coup in Brooklyn. Like, do you remember that? So it's just like, Jason Kidd is...
He doesn't leave anywhere like on normal terms where it's like, oh, I was on the up and up. There's always like, so everything crystallized for me. That made was like, that's super on brand. I get it. Not surprised at all.
Shout out to the Knicks for getting other teams' head coaches paid.
Good. Yeah, good for them. They're just thinking about everybody else.
Can you take us out of here, sir?
Thank you, everybody, for listening, for watching. Hopefully this can be aired and the Knicks don't hire someone immediately. Let us know who you think they should hire. Let us know if you think they had a plan. If you're wherever you're listening to this, please remember to rate, review, subscribe, leave us a positive review. That always helps. 5 stars, thumbs up, the whole deal. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave us a comment there. Let us know what you think. Make sure you're subscribed there as well. Join our Discord, links for that in the YouTube and podcast description. Tell your friends, tell your enemies. Shouts, Frank Ntilikina. Apologies, Jared Allen. Frank Ntilikina should be the coach.